What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and welcome to another episode of the First Down Training Show. Today, we're going to be talking about the problem I see with high school football and why it is hurting so many athletes across the country. Then, we're going to be getting into some current events. We're going to be talking about Josh Allen's historic contract, and then we're going to be talking about DK Metcalf going to the Steelers and what that means for the Steelers and a potential new quarterback they're going to be getting. So I hope this video brings you guys some value. Appreciate you tuning in. Let's get started. Now, the first issue I see, you guys, with high school football is the problem with payment for coaches, more specifically assistant coaches, also head coaches in a lot of public schools as well. So I'm going to give you some personal shared insight from my high school career, like high school coaching career stint. Extremely short-lived. I was only a high school football coach for about a month. Absolutely hated it. Was not my thing. I like, doing things a certain way, and I like, kind of being my own boss, if you will. So I like doing my own thing, and, working for somebody, being an assistant coach just wasn't my thing. It wasn't that I didn't love and enjoy working with athletes, drawing up scheme, coming up with ways to win, the preparation that goes into win week in and week out, but it just wasn't my thing. But I can give you some shared experience because this is what a lot of high school coaches have to go through. And maybe you can relate to this and understand where they're coming from in a lot of situations. So first things first, like I mentioned, is the pay. So when I was a high school coach, and I'm not afraid to share with you these numbers, you were paid twice for the entire year. So you got a check after spring ball, I believe, and then you got, you got a check after summer workouts, and then you got a check after the season ended. So you got two stipends, if you will. And I remember my first check after summer workouts, I had missed a week because I went on vacation with my family, and I remember that check was probably, I want to say, like $1,800. And then you got a second stipend once the season ended, and mind you, the season is 10 weeks, right? So that's 10 weeks with no pay, technically, if this is your only job. At that time, I was still going to classes in college, training on the side, so it wasn't like I needed the money and I had to pay rent or anything like that, but just to give you kind of a perspective of why coaches are paid so low. So then the second check was $2,500. So I want to say it was like a little under $5,000 for the entire year. So that's like working a minimum wage job. That's like working at McDonald's or working at Wendy's, and there's no knock on that, but just the issue is that there's a lack of incentive for people to want to be a high school football coach. I'll put this into perspective. Think of it like this. And this relates to obviously why I feel high school football is going in the wrong direction, but I'll get there in a second. But think about it like this. That's $5,000 for the whole year. Now, let's say I wanted to be a private trainer, and let's say I wanted to charge, $60 for a session, and let's say I wanted to do a group session, and let's say I only trained on weekends, and let's say I had two groups of 10 athletes. That would be $600 and then $600. That's $1,200. So that means if I do that 4 times every single weekend throughout the month, I'm making $4,800 that month, right? If I only train 2 days out of the week, that's more or just about as what you would have made if you were a high school coach for the full year. So there's really no incentive to be a high school coach. Not a lot of people want to be a high school coach because it's just not a way that you can pay the bills. Now, I will say this. If you get into coaching high school football, you're not doing that to make a ton of money. I want to be straight up with that. But I just think that if there was a way that these school districts, and again, I understand if the football team isn't bringing in a ton of money, they're not bringing in a ton of eyeballs, and they don't have the funding to be able to pay these coaches. But what I will say is I think there needs to be more pay incentive for high school coaches. I've heard of a lot of programs I was lucky. I'm in Southern California, which is a big football market, so they allocate a lot of money at these school districts to pay high school coaches and across all sports, just because football and any other sport is so big down here. But what I will say is in other states, you're a volunteer. If you're not the head coach, you're pretty much volunteering your time. So I think the lack of pay incentive causes high school programs to maybe not get the best type of coaches. And so I get a lot of, praise from high school coaches, but I also get a lot of negativity from high school coaches with the athletes that I train in person, because now I just do training, right? We do training camps. We travel all over the country. We work with probably over 1,000 different athletes every single year, but we still train guys in Southern California on the weekends during the week when we are in town, right? And so the athletes that I work with, their high school head coaches generally are not the biggest fans of guys like me because they feel that I'm teaching them a different way from what their high school program is doing. Now, listen, I would love to be a part of the high school program, but from a business lens and from a monetary perspective, it doesn't make any sense for me to dedicate all this time coaching high school sports when I could be training athletes and making an impact that way, and obviously making more money to be able to pay the bills and keep the lights on. You know what I'm saying? So there's just not much of an incentive there. Now, what a lot of people will say to that is like, well, you could become a coach, you kind of go through the grunt work, and then you work your way up, and then you become, you know, like a head coach or an offensive coordinator, and then maybe you move on to a college job, and then from the college job, maybe you move on to a coordinator position, and then from a coordinator position, you move on to maybe the NFL. That's kind of the coaching path. But do you guys understand how long of a road that is? That's an insanely long path, because like, this is what everybody told me when I was a coach, right? I coached 1 year. I was the receiver coach at the high school that I went to, Los Alamitos High School, right? And so I coached receivers for a year. After that season, I probably had 3 different junior colleges give me a job or a job offer to coach at their school, right? Now the pitch was, hey, you come to our junior college, you make literally nothing as an assistant coach, but if you do really well, then you could get hired on at another junior college or maybe a smaller college program as a coordinator. How many years is it going to take me to get that job offer? Then I go to that school, then I perform really well. Let's say that's another 3 years. And then maybe I get a job as an assistant at a Division I level school, which isn't the greatest money in the world. It's still better than what you're making at a JUCO level or a high school level. And then let's say when I'm at that assistant job, okay, I do really well. Then maybe I become a coordinator at another D1, but it's a smaller D1. And then I do really well, and then I promote to a coordinator at a bigger D1. But that's a lot of time, you guys. You're looking at like 20 years of grunt work to get you to that point. And some people, that's for them. I'm not trying to discourage you if that's like your dream or what you want to do. Like, good for you, totally fine. But what I will say is that most people don't have that kind of time. So high schools don't get a lot of coaches who take coaching extremely serious. They have a passion for it. They love it. And I'm not saying this is all high school coaches, by the way, because I know a lot of high school coaches watch this channel, and they watch this channel to improve their knowledge of the quarterback, receiver position, and other things to pass that knowledge on to their players. And that's great, and I think that's awesome. But I think a lot of guys don't take it as serious. I think it's a side job for them. They do it because they love it. They don't do it because they're trying to make a lasting impact on athletes. So what ends up happening is that the athletes at the school, you spend more time at your school and getting training from your strength and conditioning coach, your position coach, your coordinator, whatever, as an athlete, than you do with your private trainer. And your private trainer might take it a little bit more serious. He might have more knowledge on a specific topic. Sometimes they don't. I've seen a lot of bad trainers out there, don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying that it creates this strife. And that is what I feel is the problem with high school sports, and why I feel like a lot of athletes are not ready for the next level right away, because high school coaches are kind of like, I don't want to say bottom of the barrel, that's the wrong analogy, but for lack of a better word, sometimes can be like bottom of the barrel coaching talent-wise. And I'm not trying to knock them, I just think that a lot of guys don't take it serious. So athletes are being fed, like, let's use the example of a wide receiver. A wide receiver, let's say he's being told at practice with his coach, hey, at the top of the route, you got to beat the drum, and off the line, you got to have your hands up here by your face, like giving you a bunch of like outdated info. Because that was the info they were taught, I'm not blaming them, but that was the info they were taught. And they haven't taken the time to study new info, to bring themselves up to date on the current methods that receiver coaches are teaching. And I'm not saying it's my methods. There are plenty of guys that teach similar stuff to what I teach, but they don't care enough, because it's a side gig, because there's no incentives. It's such a long process to move up in the coaching world. You're not making any money, so it's a side gig. They're not going to dedicate much time to that. They're not going to spend extra hours when they go home and they have their wife and their kids that they haven't seen all day studying film. Most guys don't do that. Some guys do, but most guys don't do that. So athletes are being fed bad info, bad info, bad info, bad info over and over again, and you know what that's going to do? It's going to create bad habits. That's not going to get you ready for the next level. So that's what I feel is the major problem with high school sports, and why a lot of high school athletes are not being developed. And again, it creates a bad strife that's not good for the athlete. Everything that I talk about is always with the intention of putting the kids first and putting the kids' development first, just putting everything about those kids first, right? And so, like, I want the athletes that I train to be as successful as possible. And I'm going to do my absolute best to give them great info, up-to-date info, things that are going to improve their skills. But when they're trying to practice those things at practice, and you get a coach who doesn't dedicate the time, doesn't put in time to learning new information, doesn't put the time, and it's okay if we disagree on things. That's totally fine. I'm open to communication as a trainer. If a coach doesn't like what I'm teaching, I'd be happy to talk to him. And I've done that before with guys. But A lot of coaches have it's a big ego game. And then they'll tell the athlete, no, that's wrong. Don't listen to your trainer. Listen to me. Your trainer doesn't know what he's talking about. And so there's this athlete who's in the middle of this trainer and this coach. Trainer saying the head coach doesn't know what he's talking about, or the coach doesn't know what he's talking about. And then the coach is saying the trainer doesn't know what he's talking about. So the athlete's conflicted. Now he's hesitant. Now he's not going to practice either thing because he's trying to please both sides. And then the athlete doesn't get any better. And that's why guys are not being developed. So what I wish would change from a high school football perspective is I wish that there were more certifications and courses that high school coaches have to take. I remember when I became a high school coach, all I had to do was get CPR certified and like turn in like my fingerprints to make sure that I wasn't, like a bad person and didn't have like a criminal record. That's it. That's all that was required of me. I could have had no knowledge whatsoever about football and I still could have gotten hired. I didn't have to go through any type of course. I think it needs to be mandatory, and I think it needs to be up-to-date information from college coaches, NFL coaches, whatever, that high school coaches have to complete XYZ course and have to implement XYZ strategy to their team. And obviously there could be room for swaying off of that. You don't want everybody to run the same offense and do the same things, but there needs to be more certifications for it. From a skill perspective and an athlete development perspective, but also from a safety perspective. I think it's crazy that you get defensive guys that haven't played football in 30 years and are not up to date on current tackling form, aren't up to date on new strategies to help them with tackling, don't do anything to improve their game, and they're teaching 14, 15-year-olds how to tackle when it may be the wrong form. And that could lead to a serious head injury, neck injury, and a lot of other problems, you guys. So I just wish in high school sports there was more incentive for coaches, so I wish they would get paid better, right? I honestly don't think it would be that hard for these school districts to cough up some money. Here's a thought. What we do is we travel across the country to do training camps, right? And you know who we have to deal a lot with? We got to deal with school districts a lot. We have to deal with them a lot, right? And so we deal with public schools. Some of the lazy, no offense if anybody works for a public school district, some of the laziest people I have ever dealt with on the phone. I could literally say, hey, here is $2,000. Can we rent your field for just a Saturday and Sunday, one weekend out of the year? And they'll be like, oh, we'll get back to you. And then I don't hear from them for 2-3 weeks. It's like they don't understand what money is. So it's like, why don't we open up our facilities and say, hey, every rental that we get, we're going to use that money and create a fund to pay our coaches because we appreciate what they're doing. That's a great idea. I don't think the school district needs any more money. And so it's like, I really feel like it wouldn't be that hard to pay our coaches more. Now at private schools, it's a little bit different. Money talks. I remember I did a camp at St. Thomas Aquinas High School in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and it was expensive. I think we need the field for 10 hours, so our camps are from 10 to 2 on both days, but we need it from 9 to 10 for setup. So 10 hours. I was spending like $300 an hour. I had to cut him a check for $3,000, right? And I remember talking to the athletic director, and he was like, yeah, I am required to do X amount of camps a year and raise, I think he said like $1 million. I think he said I have to raise $1 million or $900,000 to $1 million just off of field rentals and athletics, because that's their athletic fund to pay coaches. So at private schools it's a little different. The head coach is making good money. The assistants are probably making better money. So I think there's more incentives at private schools, but obviously there's less private schools than public schools, right? And then I know some private schools who are also skinned alive with their assistants anyways, where there's the head coach makes a ton of money and nobody else makes any money. So I think if we pay coaches better at these programs, there are more incentives. There might be a guy who's like, hey, listen, I want to be a football coach. I could be a trainer, or I could go to this high school and make $40,000 a year, which I can live on that, and then be able to move my way up if they're really passionate about it, and then they'll actually care about it because it can be a full-time job for them. But, again, like I said, it's just there's no incentives, and it's a really long process for them to move up. The process of moving up is never going to change, but I just think there needs to be more pay incentives, and there needs to be certifications for these high school coaches so our athletes can actually develop, and there's not this strife between trainers and coaches. But that's just my opinion. Now, also, fellas, we're going to get into some current events here in a second, but as we mentioned a couple times earlier in this video, we do a series of training camps, and we are coming out to 9 more cities this year for training camps. So if you guys would like to sign up to work with myself and my staff, check out that very first link in the description below. That's where you can sign up, get all the information on the states that we will be attending to and the places we are going. Next up on our camp tour, we're coming out to Seattle, Washington. Then after that, we will be heading out to Chicago, Illinois, Newark, New Jersey, Birmingham, Alabama, Alabama, Houston, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, Columbus, Ohio, Boise, Idaho, and finishing off our camp tour in Los Angeles, California. So guys, if you want some info, want to sign up, go to that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you there. Our Seattle camp is completely sold out, and every camp after that, you guys, we only have about 6 spots remaining. So reason why we do that, we can't coach up every single athlete and give them individual attention if we let everybody from our YouTube channel just come out and attend. So we limit spots. So guys, make sure you take advantage of us having spots available. Go to that very first link in the description below. Let's get into some current events. So now, first current event that I want to talk about today that we have on the docket is going to be Josh Allen has agreed to a new NFL record 6-year, $330 million contract that includes $250 million guaranteed per ESPN insider Adam Schefter. That is, they say that's the largest guarantee ever given to a player, $250 million guaranteed. That's insane. Like, that's so much money, guys. Like, if I had $250 million, like, I don't understand the stuff I would buy. I wouldn't buy. I'd get a sweet house. I'd probably get like $20 million home. I only need one home. I need one place. I'd probably go to like the South where it would get me a huge lot of land, big home, like probably like Tennessee or something like that. And that's only $20 million. Like, yeah, he's got to pay taxes on it, and he's in New York, which sucks because he's got to pay New York taxes. I'm in California, so Josh, I feel your pain. But I'm telling you, even if you only get 125 after taxes, government takes 50, of course, they always do. 125 after taxes, you take 20, go buy a nice house, take 5, buy some cars, and then 100 million, maybe you just invest it, and then you're making money every single month and just live off of that. Like, dude, like, come on. Like, that'd be all, like, that's all you need. And I you know, it's tough, man, because I think about what these football players go through, and I think about, like, you know, the stuff they put their bodies through, and you get that kind of money, it's like, God, do I really want to get up at 6 a.m. to go lift? You know what I mean? But they love it, and that shows that they love it. And I hope that Josh Allen enjoys the money, and I hope that he has a great year. Obviously, MVP, best player in the league, and I hope he can get a Super Bowl. Seriously, I hope that kind of money can help him get a Super Bowl. It's just always a little dicey, though, when you pay players like that, because you look at a guy like Tom Brady. Tom Brady was not the highest. He's the best player of all time, but was not the highest paid player of all time, because they had money to go out and get other players, like in Tampa Bay, and he's obviously got 7 rings, did something right. So you never know. You never know how this goes. You never know if Buffalo maybe loses some guys. I don't know. Time will tell, but very excited for Josh Allen. I think that's great for him. Next current event. This was a huge one. I was in the Las Vegas airport. We had a camp in Las Vegas last weekend. I was in the Las Vegas airport when I read about this. DK Metcalf joining the Steelers in trade from the Seahawks will sign a $150 million contract. That's a lot of money. Good for the Steelers, man. Like, good for the Steelers. Like, whether they stick it out with Russ, or let's say they get, because I know Justin Fields is gone. Justin Fields is going to the Jets. Good for Justin Fields. But if the Steelers get Aaron Rodgers, and Najee Harris just left, so that's kind of, I was talking about this earlier last night on like a TikTok live, and I was talking about, like, if the Steelers get Rodgers, and then they have Metcalf, Pickens, Najee Harris, like, that's a dangerous offense. And they have a great defense. So I obviously know Najee Harris anymore. I forget where he's going, but I know he's leaving. But if they get Aaron Rodgers, and you give Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, and George Pickens, that's a high-powered offense, you guys. So I'm excited to see how it goes. I think having 2 receivers like that, Pickens and Metcalf, I'm seeing all these memes on social media joking around about the two and like how they're going to start fights and stuff like that. So it's pretty funny. It's all in good fun. But I think that's great for the Steelers. Like, seriously, I think that's a huge move for them, and I think they're making a ton of moves within free agency, and so I think this is going to be a big year for them. I think they're taking it serious, obviously, and I think they want a Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin freaking deserves another Super Bowl. Does he have one? I don't know if he has one, but Mike Tomlin deserves a Super Bowl. That's like one of my favorite coaches in the NFL. I love the way he handles himself. I love the way he handles the team. You hear a lot of stories about him, so I think they deserve a Super Bowl. I think DK definitely does. If Rodgers joins the team, Rodgers definitely deserves a Super Bowl. Now, guys, let's get to some questions. So what we do at the end of every single episode is we will answer 3 questions that you guys have asked on a previous video, and you posted those questions in the comment section. So guys, if you have questions and you want to be featured on one of these episodes, like, guys, I go through every single one. I read every single one. So fellas, go to the comment section. Feel free, ask me literally any question, and I will feature you on an episode. We post 3 episodes a week, so we'll post them throughout the week. So guys, let's get into these questions here. So first question is from Soul5531. I believe you've asked a question on here before, man, so I appreciate it very much. Appreciate you keeping up with these videos. He asked, what would you suggest for an undersized wide receiver that's starting in junior or sophomore year and wants to go to the next level? I have great ball knowledge, but I'm just starting late. So if you're starting your sophomore or junior year, I always relate it to the example of Davante Adams. Davante Adams didn't start playing football until his sophomore or junior year of high school, and he's obviously one of the best route runners in the NFL, one of the best receivers of all time. So it's not like a pipe dream. It's not impossible. But what I would say if you're starting late, to get to that next level, you need probably 4 aspects of your game. So one of them is like football IQ. You got to know how to run routes, how to work things versus different coverages. And you said you have good ball knowledge, so that helps. 2 is route running. You got to be able to separate, especially at the next level. Something that helps with separation at the next level is speed. You're going to be matched up against DBs who are world class at the D1 level. And like if they're playing at the D1 level, they're going to have some speed. So you need speed to be able to compete with those guys. And then you need great catching ability. You got to be able to finish the play. So if you can combine all 4 of those things, then I really think that you have a good body of work, and you just have to keep chipping away. I think a lot of you watching this who maybe want to play football or maybe start late, I think the key is to try to not, how do I put this, compare yourself to others. I think if you're comparing yourself to guys who have 7, 8 years of experience, you're going to get very discouraged. Don't do that. Just focus on your game. Focus on getting 1% better every single snap, and I think that's the best way to go about it. Okay? So now, appreciate you asking that, man. Let's get to this next question from Captain 3513 M6 L or I. Thanks for asking, man. Appreciate it. Hey, coach, I play next season, and the team I'm just joining won 0 games with most 6 points. Jeez. How am I supposed to get a good highlight tape if you're not on the most talented team? So, I mean, honestly, like, colleges, the good news is colleges don't recruit you based on your team. They recruit you based on you recruiting as an individual sport. So to get a good highlight tape, I mean, you just got to work with your guys. I mean, like, does it say if you're a receiver or a quarterback or not? Okay, well, let's say you're a receiver, right? Like, you should be working with your quarterback. If you're a quarterback, you should be working with your receiver. You guys should be trying to develop some type of chemistry so you can get some plays on film. Because at the end of the day, you're only as good as your team, as a receiver and as a quarterback. But there are going to be opportunities for plays. Like, you guys can't be that bad. Like, I know you're only scoring 6 points, but like, you need to get after in the offseason. You need to be, something that we did in high school was we would do something called PRPs, which is player run practices. So like, it's where all the players would get together and we'd just have a practice, right? And we'd run the practice exactly how we would practice with coaches there, but it would be on the players. So I would start doing that. So the more reps that you guys get, the better you're going to be. And I guarantee you guys will make more plays if you put in the time in the offseason. And then that will lead to a better highlight tape and can lead to you getting recruited. So hope that makes sense, dude. Appreciate you asking that. Next question from Jimmy John 2521. Hey, coach, I'm going after running back. It's my freshman year, but I'm a little oversized in weight, undersized in height. 5'5", 162, and I'm not very fast. My stamina is terrible. And I'm trying to start on varsity. We're doing weightlifting every Wednesday. Any tips? Need to be lifting more than just 1 day a week, so I would try to get in 4 days a week. So I would probably do like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. That's probably the schedule that I would do for you. If you're trying to cut down in weight, I think if you're lifting, that's probably best thing for you. I think when you're lifting, if you're trying to cut weight, what I would do is I would try to cut down the amount of rest that you're taking in between sets. So instead of taking like 2 to 3 minutes rest in between your sets, try to do 1 minute. That kind of keeps you in like a fat burning zone, if you will. It's a higher intensity. So it can help you maybe cut down, still put on muscle, but like kind of lean out, if you will. Because 162 isn't bad. It's just what's your body fat percentage. If you're 5'5", 162, but you're like 10% body fat, that's pretty good. If you're like 30% body fat, then that's a different story. So I would say you need to put on more muscle and burn some fat. So higher intensity workouts, doing higher reps and cutting down the rest time, I think is best. And then for stamina, I would just say 2 times a week, dude, get out to the field and run sprints. Football is not a distance game. We're not running laps. So you running miles at a time might get you in decent shape, but it's not going to get you in football shape. To get you in football shape, you got to sprint. So 2 times a week, what I want you to do, go to the field and run 10 40s. Sprint as hard as you can for 40 yards, walk back, do it again, and do 10 of those. And I'm telling you right now, you're going to get in better shape if you stay consistent with that schedule. So hope that helps, man. So guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you guys got questions, again, post them in the comment section below, but I appreciate y'all. We're going to be back with another episode tomorrow. So again, I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for joining.